There has been a major fracture in the conservative media ecosystem over the departure of Candace Owens from the Daily Wire. Now, we're not just covering YouTube drama for the sake of it. This has genuinely become a major ideological fissure. We've seen major figures in conservative media and conservative activists debate what this means, what should be allowed. We've played for everybody previously the comments by Ben Shapiro, where he justified the departure of Candace Owens, saying that the Daily Wire itself is a publisher, that it is not a platform and thus has no obligation to employ somebody who doesn't agree with them. Very discontinent in the past with some of Ben's comments on cancel culture and on social media, for example. This has definitely been taken notice by some new entrants to the sphere, Patrick Bet-David in particular, and comedian Andrew Schulz as well. Here's what they had to say.
CBN is what? What does CBN stand for?
Christian Broadcasting Network.
It's not, you know, a RBN, Religious Broadcasting Network. It's what? Christian Broadcasting Network. Daily Wire can be Daily DJW, Daily Jewish Wire, or DIW, Daily Israel Wire. No problem.
Yep.
If that's your value, stick to that. We all live in America. It should be America first, not Iran first, not Armenia first, not Israel first. It should be America first. If you think it's Israel first, go to Israel.
I agree. I agree with every word the man just said. You know, he actually, frankly, is probably more powerful than me because he's not even from here. He said, as he said, he's what I think, Armenian Christian from Iran. He's like, if you're Israel first, or if you're Armenian first, or any of that, he's like, that's fine. He's like, but put it there in the title. And I think what he's getting, I wouldn't have said Daily Jewish Wire personally. Daily Israel Wire, I mean, listen, based upon the comments that they have made, you had the CEO, Jeremy Boring, who did Twitter Space, whatever it's called, X Spaces now at this point. He said, I would never hire somebody who said that there was a genocide happening in Gaza. And it's like, well, why? You know, I mean, look, even if you disagree, why is that? Like, what is your I cannot imagine personally having any red line about any country. I'll give you a perfect example. My family is Indian. Ryan is very critical of the Modi government and has done multiple segments about censorship, including, by the way, which people in India got very upset at me about. You know what I said? I said, stick to your own business. In my country, this guy gets to do whatever he wants. Those are my editorial principles. Whether I agree or not, I don't care. I don't live there. I'm not an Indian citizen. Ben, though, for example, and actually the entire leadership of the Daily Wire, somehow think that it is okay to enforce foreign shibboleths on our soil as it relates to an American media company. And I think it's entirely legitimate to level the criticism that Patrick and others have now put into the sphere. So go ahead before I play Andrew.
I just wanted to reiterate, we're going to talk more about Rogan and his comments, but I thought a very important point that he made when he initially said, hey, I think this is a genocide, which is, you know, talking about Israel's conduct in Gaza, it's a little bit different than whatever your like philosophical view is on abortion or your philosophical view is on gay rights, for example, any sort of like, you know, culture war issue. You're talking about basically what Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro are saying is you are not allowed to acknowledge reality. You're not allowed to talk honestly about the atrocities that are unfolding in front of us that IDF soldiers themselves are posting on TikTok. If you talk honestly about those things, you don't have a place at this network. And so I think that's part of why this actually ends up being important because, you know, the whole like facts versus feelings, Ben Shapiro, the facts are pretty undisputable about you. Listen, you may not want to say the word genocide, but war crimes, ethnic cleansing. I mean, there have whole conferences there celebrating the idea of, hey, we're going to resettle Gaza. We're going to push everybody out. These things are undeniable. So is it facts or is it feelings? I think on this one issue, we have a very clear answer here.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, like you just said about, look, I don't use moral language. I think these are all loaded terms. My point, though, is that when it comes to, how about this? Critical behavior that has been, at the very least, has backfired against Israel. Can we talk about that? I haven't even heard him say that. Every time I check this man's feed, it's all retweeting the justification, including Israel PM's like military justification of what's happening on the ground. I mean, why? You're going to trust what they have to say? And this is coming from a person, I'm a patriotic American. I love this country. I don't trust the U.S. military.
Right.
When the U.S. military is like, hey, here's what we did to this hospital in Kunduz, I'm like, well, maybe. And you know who I ask? I ask people who are actually actually in the military, not the people who are the spokesperson, and they're like, oh yeah, they're lying, the brass is full of shit, and they're trying to paint you a different picture. Why do I have the wherewithal to do that in a country that I love? Not even a country that I'm not even from or don't live in. Very interesting, isn't it? Comedian Andrew Schulz also, I thought he put it really well in his discussion around censorship. One thing I love about comedians is that they're observational by nature, and that whenever they see something, they don't come into it with the same preconceived like rhetoric and all that you're supposed to, and they can just kind of say it as it is. Here's what he had to say.
He makes the argument for censorship. He calls it something else.
Yeah, I forget the term. I have it in my phone.
But I don't even think he's using the term right, but he's basically like, there's a window of ideas we accept.
Yes.
And we accept ideas between this, I guess this is, if I get window, you're looking like this. So we accept ideas between here and here. And anything outside of that window, well, you're fireable. That's censorship.
What?
But he's acting as if this is like a justified reason for firing people when you built your identity and platform off of no censorship and freedom of speech and facts don't care about your feelings and all this shit.
It's also funny that that window happens to end where his beliefs end.
Isn't
that interesting?
You would say that.
Not being pro-Israel, that's where the window ends. That's also your specific personal belief.
What?
So I just don't see.
So you can't have an opinion on your platform that is not pro a country that is not ours?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Crazy. I wish.
So is the Daily Wire an American media platform or is it an Israeli media platform? I'm just asking.
This guy's cooking.
He's just asking, and he's asking the right question. I think that, again, is that, and this is also why I think it's hilarious, is that Israeli military defenders and Israel firsters in the US have actually created their own worst nightmare, where their behavior is now so obvious and is so blatant in terms of flipping on a dime as regards to censorship, cancel culture, free speech, student protests where, oh, we're supposed to be upset because kids are crying on campus, that it is now clear what their real and first objective is. They care more about Israel than they do even about concepts and principles that we hold dear here in this country. And that's why I think it's very important that this fight has broken out. I will not lie and say that I don't think that they are very much still remain in power, especially whenever it comes to the elected, representatives. But as all things, the online discussion is a precursor to possibly change 15, 20 years down the line. And that is where I at least see things going right now, because this decision in particular has opened up a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, well, they turned on a dime. It was very like, I'm a free speech absolutist and it's period, end of story. And you can't, if you're the New York Times, you can't say the Tom Cotton op-ed is out of bounds. You can't fire the editor that greenlit this because that's cancel culture. There was no discussion of an Overton window when it came to that, or, even more recently when it came to Ronna McDaniel's firing it over at NBC News. That Overton window was apparently not acceptable. I mean, frankly, yeah, the sort of language Ben is using now sounds like a lot of what liberals were saying when they were justifying censorship, saying, no, at this outlet, these are the values, that's perfectly acceptable. People should lose their jobs for having views, having viewpoints, expressing opinions that are outside of what we consider to be acceptable discourse. That was the liberal justification, and now it's just very clear that you share that view. It just happens that, you're fine with the views that they had problems with. You're fine with those on your platform, but there are other views, including most specifically on the issue of Israel, that are out of bounds. And I don't know that that's the only way. You mentioned abortion as well. That probably is another one that would be out of bounds for him if you had someone there who was saying, no, I think women should have the right to choose, all the way through the third trimester. That apparently also would be out of bounds and grounds for firing on Ben Shapiro's network as well. So, just own up to it. Your views are different than what you said that they were. And you built an entire media platform and a lot of wealth on, espousing that you were this free speech, anti-cancel culture guy, and you're not.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line here to me.
That's actually probably what bugs me more than anything, is because it would be, I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah, it would be like if we started reading pharmaceutical ads, here on the show. Like, that would be insane. We have raised money from well-meaning, hard-earned people's money to fund our program. And then we're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna start reading like Pfizer ads or something here on the show. People rightfully would be outraged, and they should be, because then why did we present years and years and years of building up a brand and trying to maintain integrity? I mean, and just so people know, we have turned down massive offers for such types of things here on the show, regardless of how much money it is, simply because we know it would be a betrayal. But, you know, if the real value is about something else, as we all start to learn here in this very revealing episode, I think it does tell us quite a bit. Let's put up this as well, because there has been now a gauntlet thrown by Candace. So Candace Owens challenging Ben Shapiro to a debate. There has been a lot of back and forth, and I won't get into all the details, but she says, barring the insinuation that it was all this beef about whether she was traveling to London or not, Candace says that she does not want to participate in a debate with Ben Shapiro on the Daily Wire platform, and that she wants it to be in person. She then says that I fully accept there will be no moderator. I will get in touch privately to get all of this set up. There has been a major win. But one of the problems, Krystal, if we look at some of the back and forth traffic, and that I think Candace is entirely correct about, is she was like, okay, let's debate. And Ben Shapiro was like, fine, come to my studio and debate me on my own show. And she said, well, why don't we pick Lex Friedman or Joe Rogan or any of those places? And Jeremy Boring was like, no, we won't accept that, going after Patrick Deff David. Ben just participated in a debate on Lex Friedman's podcast with freaking Destiny. You know, it's like, so why can't you do it with Candace Owens? It's one of those where it's so weaselly, honestly, this idea that the moderator would put his foot on this, you know, would put his foot on the gas in some sort of direction. It's just one of those where, look, I hope that it actually does happen. I genuinely do, even though both sides have now allegedly agreed. We'll see if the Daily Wire at this point does try to get out of it. But, you know, the lengths and the lengths that they have gone to protect and to justify this decision over there as a business, I don't think we can ever say that this is a quote-unquote free speech organization ever again. Yeah. At the very least.
Let me also say, I genuinely think that some of Candace's comments, I mean, she's still out there defending Kanye West, who literally said, I love Hitler, okay? I do think that some of her comments are can be classified as anti-Semitic. But she was making those comments before you hired her here.
Exactly.
And so that's the thing to me, is like, it's very clear. That actually wasn't the line. That was fine. It was when you were very vociferously critical of the Israeli government. And even he brings up, who's the other commentator who has more of a like, listen, I just think we shouldn't be involved in anything. He's like, that view was fine when it comes to Israel.
I think it's Matt Walsh.
But because he is, you know, very clear that he thinks Israel is a moral actor, that's also fine. That's acceptable. But if you're actually directly critical of the Israeli government, in a way that, you know, Ben finds it acceptable to be critical of the American government, but you can't be critical in that way of the Israeli government, that's where the line was. It wasn't the, you know, weird Hitler comments. It wasn't backing up Kanye West. It was when you were directly critical of the Israeli government. That was the line too far. And so I think it's really important, because people may look at some of her comments and say, you know what, those are out of bounds, and I see why they don't want that at that network. But that was not actually where the line was drawn. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and look, let's also talk in terms of like popular opinion. It's perfectly acceptable at the Daily Wire to be against IVF. That's like a 3% position here in the United States. Okay? So, but that's fine. But, you know, it's not fine to be like, yeah, again, that's actually in a country, our country, that affects us, our policy. And I think that should be allowed. I am actually a free speech absolutist. I'll pretty much hear anybody out, even if they're saying some absolutely crazy shit. But for them, for some reason, it's like that's within the bounds of the quote-unquote Overton window, even though it's really not if you consider, you know, U.S. discourse. And here we're having a debate about a foreign country, and apparently that is completely out of bounds.
And
so
look,
let's just hammer that home.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You want to have an Overton, you are allowed to have whoever you want to have on your platform. That's fine. But I don't want to hear your criticism of other news outlets and other publishers' quote-unquote Overton window and the way they draw the lines. If they happen to be a little different from where you draw the lines, I don't want to hear that criticism anymore, because you do not have grounds to stand on at this point.
I could not agree with that more. There was also a really interesting, there's some other actors that have been entering the debate. Christopher Rufo, the CRT kind of campaigner who entered the fray with some analysis. Let's put this up on the screen. It's really worth reading. We have the full statement here, but basically it comes down to this. He says, it is not a violation of freedom of speech to let a multi-million-dollar contract expire, which is reportedly what happened. The Daily Wire is not obligated to subsidize Candace Owens, especially if she's deviating from the publication's editorial standard or causing problems. DW is not not an open platform such as YouTube, Facebook, X, and the owners of the publications are under no obligation. So that is definitely true. They say Owens spent months taking public shots at Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, a tacit request to get canned and then play the martyr. She said, then he continues, Owens is a gifted speaker who has been unable to turn controversy into attention, a valuable capability, but she does not advance a serious politics. She is clearly traveling down an ugly but unfortunately well-trodden path. She has rationalized, okay, blah, 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 all this about Candace. There is an audience for such kind of material. InfoWars does a robust business in vitamins and emergency prep kits, but it's a political dead end. Why does it matter? Because the right faces an inflection point. There are serious people who are trying to advance a serious political movement with a vision for governing. I consider the Daily Wire to be among them. And then there are serious people who are willing to sell kayfabe and conspiracy, leading us nowhere. I care about politics because I believe we have substantive work to do for the country. And this requires putting together a coalition capable of taking responsibility. The choice is ours. So interesting analysis there. Now, here's the other issue that I have with this. If you presume that the Daily Wire is, a serious political organization and all of that, well, this is a political vision for a incredibly unpopular GOP. I would venture, I would say with Candace at least, I'd much rather be with her in terms of where she's willing to go, especially with regards to Donald Trump and some more MAGA-style politics, which actually has a shot at electability, than with people who are out there sparking conversations about cutting Social Security, banning abortion, banning IVF. Which do you think is a more serious political movement and capable of moving things forward? But curious what you have to say, Krystal.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
You made the IVF point previously. The serious ones are the ones who are in favor of banning IVF, something that almost literally no one supports. Okay. But you know what? I would dissent from you in one regard. I actually think his analysis here of Candace Owens is basically correct. Those are all reasons to have not hired Candace Owens in the first place.
Sure, right.
But it has nothing to do with the reason she was actually fired. So it's a little bit irrelevant. Like, you might be happy she's gone for these other various reasons. You don't think she's a quote unquote serious person, which, okay, I kind of agree with you there. But again, that isn't really relevant to what happened here and the specific reasons, the specific context around why she was fired at this point in time. Yes, these would all have been good reasons for Ben Shapiro never to hire her and, to have never indulged the supporting Kanye when he was saying things that were really unsupportable. But all of those things were fine. So let's not pretend otherwise. Like I said, Christopher Roof, you may be glad she's gone for all those variety reasons. That's fine, but that really is kind of irrelevant to this
it's also
discussion.
a misunderstanding, too, of what we're doing. The Daily Wire is not a political organization. It is an entertainment media company whose job is to make money. And that's why they hired Candace Owens in the first place. It's also why they have all these freaking cartoons and whatever their movies. Isn't there coming out with Snow White, I think? Anyway, my point is, that's not what serious political actors do.
Lady Ballers. Very
Lady
serious,
Ballers,
very serious film, Saagar. Lady Ballers.
Will not be checking out. I have not yet seen a quote-unquote conservative movie out there that is in any way actually good.
Griffin said it wasn't that bad.
Okay,
actually.
all right.
It wasn't that bad.
I believe him. He's a film buff. I'm not.
I don't know that I call it serious.
Okay. Well, my only point here would be exactly that you're right, and that it's actually a misunderstanding. That's why they hired Candace in the first place, because of the ratings. They want ratings. They want the controversy. They want people to watch. They want people to subscribe, and that's fine. Just be honest, though, about what line of business you're in. So this is also a big misunderstanding, I think, both on the political level and also here in terms of what they're actually trying to achieve.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.